Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're joining us on this virtual summit. I am super grateful to be able to participate in this. I want to thank April for including me in this opportunity. I am a nutrition coach and a mindset coach. The reason I combine both of those is because both of them are super important to get long-term results in your body and your mind and your heart and your spirit and all of it. It's all a relationship. And what's cool is that this summit is about relationships, and that's one of my favorite things to talk about because on this earth, I think one of our biggest assets besides ourselves is relationships, and one of the most important one is relationship with ourselves. And I have had my own journey of discovering how important it is to have that self-worth, not just self-esteem, but self-worth. So I wanted to just talk a little bit today on what the difference is and with your self-worth over self-esteem, and how food can be good and beautiful and great, but from when we were kids, our scenario from when we were kids and our relationship with food changes as we get older, clearly. And I want you to think about a scenario here, because we're going to talk about your relationship with food for a minute. When you are a kid and you find your first best friend, at that time, you don't care what anyone thinks about that best friend, right? Like, you think that person is the coolest kid ever. I used to have a little neighbor boy that was completely opposite of me, who had big glasses and didn't like to play sports or do anything. So totally different than my personality. I was a little bit of a tomboy, and but I thought he was the coolest. Like, I never saw anything wrong with him, and yeah, we had our little arguments, but I thought he was great. I heard this scenario once, and it's kind of stuck in my mind, and I think it's a great analogy for food. So I wanted to give you the same scenario. Think about if you were a kid and you had a best friend just like that, who you thought the world of, and they moved. And a few years later, as you're a little bit older, they move back, and your brother or sister says, he's not the same person anymore. I don't want you hanging out with him because he's bad and he's this and he's that. And in your mind, he's still fantastic. You got along great. You guys were best friends. And so then fear comes in. So if I hang out with him, it's going to be bad. People are going to judge me. I'm going to feel shameful if I'm around somebody that doesn't have the same values as me, whatever. All these things and stories start to go in your mind from what somebody told you about that friend. That friend becomes different to you. That friend becomes a different relationship is already formed right there. That's the same thing that happens with food. So as we're kids, we get all this yummy food. We love it. It's beautiful. It's nutritious. It gives us energy, and it's great until we start having stories about the food. So we start having the stories that some food's bad, some food's good, some food makes you hyper, some food you're eating too much, you're not eating enough, you're all of these things, and all of a sudden our relationship from it being free and good and nutritious and all those things I said, it changes. Our perception changes, and we choose it. We're all different. We choose it, and how we perceive that relationship. So what happens is, most likely throughout your life, there is relationships with food, and a lot of times it's with, maybe the way your parents decided to eat and show up, and if a parent was dieting all the time, or maybe somebody that you saw could eat everything and get away with it, whatever. You're all going to have different scenarios. I don't really remember growing up with my family being restrictive or dieting or anything. Like, I felt like I just ate what I wanted. But I do know when I got into those teenage years where body image was a little bit more important, and that was kind of a self-value thing, is how you looked. I do remember this two scenarios I can remember, one in high school and then one actually after I got married. But I was standing at my locker, and this girl walked up and she said, I heard her talking to her friend, and she said, I didn't eat since 4 o'clock yesterday. And I remember just thinking, oh, why would she do that? Why would she do that? And then she's like, and by that time it's lunch. And so she hadn't ate dinner or breakfast. And she's like, and I've lost all this weight. And, and I remember instantly thinking, so if you don't eat, then you lose weight, and that's going to be good for you, and you look better, and it's the whole cycle of, thoughts. And I tried it. So I thought, I'm going to not eat dinner and breakfast and see what happens, and that's how people lose weight. And I honestly had no clue any other way. Like, that's just what I thought you did. And the thing that happened was I was super active. So I played sports, and I played basketball and soccer, and I did conditioning and sprints, and we were in the weight room lifting, and I found myself having no energy. I found myself missing periods. I found myself not having clarity, and it showed up on the basketball court. And I back then I didn't really realize that how much carbs did for my body and my mind, and what I wasn't doing. I bet I was eating under 1,000 calories. And at the time I didn't really feel like it was like I had this horrible relationship with food. I just knew that this girl did A and B, and she got this result, and I wanted to do that. So that's what I did. And that was kind of a cycle until I went back and forth, and I'd listen to what different people would do, and I knew exercise was super important, and so I exercised a lot. Like, I didn't miss a day. I even remember I would be worried to go on vacations because I'm like, what if I can't work out? What if I... And so it just became a not good relationship with food and exercise in my body. It wasn't a healthy relationship. And so the next thing, probably period in my life, was when I started having kids and got married. I remember sitting at work. Actually, I hadn't had kids yet. I was sitting at work, and a girl said, if you cut out all your whites, then you can lose weight. And I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like, I started asking her, and she's like, I just cut out everything white. So white bread, white rice, potatoes, and she's like, it worked. Knowing what I know now, the only reason it worked for her was because she was cutting out calories. So cutting out a whole food group a lot of times will actually cut out calories. And that's why somebody can go on keto, somebody can go on all these different, but in the end, what they're doing is they end up in a calorie deficiency. That's it. I didn't know that then. So, I thought that was the next big thing. That's what I'm going to try. And I tried that, and that trickled to a lot of things. That did trickle to me researching a ton. So I would start researching, and I will tell you what, I have tried juicing to where I remember doing a juice fast, and I would not recommend that, but I literally remember getting sick, and I think there are some that are okay, but I didn't do it the right way. So I juiced. I tried vegan, lost a lot of my muscle, not having the protein in my body. And this whole time, what I didn't realize was this was a relationship. So this was a give and take of food back and forth, and feeling like it had to be perfect, and that I needed it to look a certain way for my body to be a certain way. And what that trickled into was, if my body wasn't showing up how I wanted it to after all this work, then I would go into shame. And so it was a cycle. So with kids, had 5 kids under the age of 5. As a mom, thought I had pretty much lost my body. So you know how that is with those of you that have had kids. And I went from over exercising. So that was all I knew what to do. I didn't understand that the food was actually more important than the exercise. and I got into just extreme exercise, and I would eat really good during the week, and then because I wasn't actually getting enough nutrients and carbs and the foods that my body really needed, because I wasn't getting enough on the weekends, I would overeat. And so I know lots of women who can understand this. Probably you listening, where you feel like you do perfect during the week, and then the weekend you blow it. And that is where I finally kind of had enough. We actually bought some gyms, and I became a personal trainer, and being in that environment and feeling like I had to have the answers was really a push for me. I was done doing the wheel spinning and over exercising, under eating, and then overeating. I was done with that. So I researched and thought, I want to find some balance. And I had a friend that said she was into personal development and into coaching and into fitness. And she said, Tracy, you just need to try this. I know that, you kind of don't ever want to track food or write anything down, because to me that felt controlling. And so I just was like, no, I should be able just to know what to eat. And so she said, just trust me, try it for 2 months. And I'm like, okay. So I had a coach give me my macronutrients, and which was a certain amount of carbs, fats, and protein. And just so you know, there are 3 different body types. So you've got endomorph, mesomorph, and ectomorph. And there's so many things that come into your plan specific. So that's why making sure you have a coach that understands your body type, your age, your activity level, your hormones, all of it, your stress levels, all of that is going to come into play in what your body needs. So for me, she knew what she was talking about. And for the first time, I exercised less and got better results, because I was eating what my body needed. I remember the first time measuring peanut butter, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was probably having double the fat I should be eating, because I was eating tablespoons of peanut butter because it was healthy, right? And so that was something that was a big aha. And protein, that was my next one. Like I thought I ate enough protein, and I wasn't close. So those 2 big things just were eye-opening to me, and they made the biggest difference. Like I could have the same amount of calories, but the fact that I was getting the right amount of protein, carbs, and fats, it changed my relationship with food. And the reason it did was because I could fit in. She's like, fit in whatever you want. So, if you want those chips, or you want a treat at the end of the day, whatever, don't have any foods off limit. And in reality, you end up eating with the protein and the fiber that you should get in and stuff. You're still about an 80-20 anyways. Like if you follow that program and count your macros for just a little while, you will find yourself, if you're getting a little bit of what you want all week, you don't find yourself on the weekends feeling like I've deprived myself, and then you eat whatever, and then the shame kicks in, and it's this cycle. Okay, so I finally, for once, after like doing that back and forth for probably 6 months, I finally just felt balanced, and it was so awesome. I felt good. I was holding on to my muscle, and I wasn't even, and I didn't feel like I was like ripped. Like I had 6-pack before, and when I did, I felt completely unhealthy, I'll be honest with you. So, but I do feel very healthy now, and I haven't tracked a macro in a year. So my goal for my clients is to get them to just understand what their body needs, and be able to live a life where they know what to eat. So if you go out to eat, or you go to a dinner or whatever, you can show up and know what to eat. That's not a problem. That is my goal for my clients. Now, what I offer is I do offer your macros, and that's like I already told you, for specifically for you, I offer an app, and that's for your workouts, and that's going to be different for everybody. So like I talked about body types, ectodwarf, that's going to be a body type that would have to lift a little bit heavier and not do as much cardio. A meso puts on muscle really quickly, and so sometimes they're more of a high rep. And then an endo, they have to do a little bit more cardio because they can put fat on easier. So I really get specific with that. And that app, you just pull it up and your workouts are all on it, and it's awesome, and there's videos. And then I also offer one-on-one coaching, and that is actually my favorite part. And the reason that is my favorite part is because after I figured out what my body needed, I could still tell that there was something missing, and that was that was this part of it, and that was my self-worth. Not self-esteem so much, like if you knew me, you would think I had self-esteem, and that I did, and that was different, but my self-worth was super important to me, and I hired coaches, and I prayed, and I did a lot of stuff to kind of get to that point where I feel like I had so much more of the mind, body, and spirit, and bring that all together. And that's a relationship. So your self-worth is actually, that is the relationship you have with yourself, obviously. And that is probably, well, yes, one of the most important one. So that's the most important relationship that you'll ever have, is between you and God, and then you and yourself. And then when you bring the food in and all of that, you just kind of feel like there's finally this magic that happens. So you have your body, and you're taking care of your soul, and this body comes, and then you're taking care of your body, and you function and you feel balanced. And so what I talk about with the one-on-one coaching is a lot of times what we talked about with when you're a kid. There's going to be a lot of those belief systems and thoughts and things that aren't serving you anymore. And that a lot of times what we do is we feed that emotion. We shove it down, and we don't want to feel it. Our brains are super smart, and their number one job is to protect us. So our brains are going to be constantly, if there's emotion we don't want to feel, it's going to protect us, and we are going to find ways around it. So calling those out and being able to see those, and the only way, one of the biggest things for me was getting coaches and learning for myself things that I wasn't seeing. And so that is my favorite part, because once we can figure out those kind of things and what's triggering you a lot of times to do the emotional eating, because we are emotional beings. We react off of emotions. So if it's a bad emotion that you do not want to feel, you're going to do something to numb it. And a lot of times in our society, food is the healthier way, right? I'm going to say healthier because it's not a drug. It's not, pornography. I mean, it's just, you could say, well, I just overeat. But if you're using food as your tool to not feel something, then you're never going to have that lasting result that you're looking for. And it's not an arrival. It's something that you always work on. I have my days too that I know that I overeat or what I emotionally eat. But the cool thing is now is that I can call it out. I know what it is. I know why, and I know how to actually feel the emotion and deal with it. So that is one of my favorite parts, because that relationship is super important. And then that relationship with food becomes second. And you combine all of those, and that's the magic. So I wanted to get on here and just talk about those two specific things, is that relationship with food and then relationship with self. So food doesn't have to be such a negative thing. Food doesn't have to be bad and good. It doesn't have to define you. It really is fuel for your body, and your body needs specific fuel for you. Everybody is different. There is never going to be a perfect diet for everybody. That is not true, and that's where I love to customize. That is probably my favorite part. I just did a meal last night for a pregnant woman that can't have dairy, and that doesn't like to eat breakfast, and guess what? We made it work for her and her specific needs, and so that's fun for me. That's fun for me, and I get to build those relationships too. All relationships are important, and what you find is when you develop the relationship with yourself and with your body and with that food, your mind and your body and your heart can go to your other relationships, and I promise you will notice your other relationships will trickle off of this one, and they will be better, and they will thrive more, and you will become your inner stance and your inner being become one, and it shows up in all aspects of your life. So with my coaching, we talk about that inner stance and changing that inner stance so you show up the same way in all your relationships. It's really fun. It's the kind of work that you do that you'll never regret. It's a choice every day. So for me, and being able to be on this virtual summit, I want you guys to fill out that application. So I have an application below. I want you to fill that out and make a choice. Make a choice for yourself today. Make a choice to change that inner game. Find self-worth. Self-worth comes from a higher source. Self-worth is who you already were, who you are. You're just finding that person again. You're hunting her. You're hunting her again, and I can help you hunt. I can help you find her and call her out. So do that. Do it for you. I choose you today and fill out that application, and we will get on a call. And I love those calls. So those are free consultation calls, and we get on and we talk about you. We talk about your needs and how I can serve you, and how we can find that balance for you finally. There is no magic pill. You have your own blueprint, and I am determined to help those who want to change, who choose to change, who choose themselves. I'm determined to help them find that blueprint, and that can be you. That can be you. So today, I hope you found a lot of value out of this. I hope you found value out of knowing that you're worth it. Your relationship with God and yourself are number one, and that relationship with your body and food will be one of the first things that once you start changing, it trickles, and you start to feel better, and you start showing up different, and you want to go to the family parties, you want to hang out with your kids more, you want to wear that outfit for your husband, whatever it is, you show up differently, and that's what I want for you. So have a wonderful time going through all of these different videos of amazing women. Get a pencil and paper, write this stuff down, be present. This is a lot of value that you're going to get out of this Women's Summit. And if you want to work with me, I start with the application. That's where I start. And we start with phone calls, and we move from there. So I am done, and I hope you found a ton of value, and have a wonderful day.